Ladies and gentlemen, it is your man out of Japan, Jay Contra here. And they're saying that by the time I finish all of the games in my collection, probably the Switch 3 is going to be out at that point. And I actually agree with that because by my estimation, at my last count, I have 331 video games to complete in my collection. That totals about 6,445 hours of video games, which I feel at a pretty good clip, about say 20 hours a week, 52 weeks in a year. That's a little over 1,000 hours a year of video games. That's about 6 years it would take me to finish all of the games in my collection. Now in 6 years, who even knows? It took 8 years for the Switch 2 to come out? So probably the Switch 3, who knows? Is it going to be 6 years? Could even be 10 years. But I have 6 years of video games in my collection. That's not good enough. There's going to be games that are going to be coming out. Presumably a new Mario. I really want to play Mario Kart World. Maybe we even get a new Zelda. Probably not within the next 6 years. So that's why I want to finish this project in 3 years. Now, how am I going to do that? Well, I guess I could play video games 40 hours a week. Only problem is I have a job, I've got people I want to spend time with. That's not going to happen. So one way that I'm going to tackle this is I have to remove a lot of games from my collection. And that's pretty much what I'm going to be focusing on in this particular video. This is coming a bit awkwardly because I thought I was going to be spending a lot more time with the first console that I'm going to be going through with here, the 3DS. Shout out to anyone who called it, especially friend of the channel and prolific 3DS collector, Transient Image. But I chose the 3DS to be the first console that I wanted to focus on because I feel like there's a shelf life on a lot of these games. I'll get into it when we go through each of these games specifically, but basically because of the way the flash memory on these cartridges was manufactured, it's prone to manufacturing defects, meaning that some of these games are going to go away and disappear if they're not properly maintained. And that actually happened to two of the games that I have here today. However, I thought I was going to be spending way more time on this, but once it got down to it, I decided there's actually a bunch of these games that I can just set aside and get rid of, not really care about. And on the flip side of that, I actually beat 4 of these games within the last month. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip around over to this table. We're going to focus in, dive in on each of these games, and I'm going to talk about the ones that I finished and the ones that I'm going to get rid of. And that's going to introduce a new concept called the bin. This is where a bunch of games are going to get put, and who knows what's actually going to end up happening to these games. They could end up going to the big video game shop in the sky. They could be put onto eBay. Maybe I end up reevaluating them and I actually want to play them. Who knows? But in this video, I want to focus on the specific tactic that I'm going to really lean heavily on over the next few years. But it's basically just getting rid of games, explaining why I'm going to be getting rid of them, and really just cutting down on the amount of video games that I have to play before I can get to the Switch 2. Welcome to the Table Studio. This is essentially the Battle Royale for my 3DS collection. And we're just going to go through these games one by one. I'm going to tell you if I've finished it or not, and what is going to end up in the bin to get rid of. So Ultra Moon is actually a game that I beat within the last month. Had a lot of fun times revisiting Gen 7. Is that what this is? Had a lot of fun times with that. So this is staying because I finished it. Majora's Mask, one of the greatest games of all time. Of course, the N64 version being the greatest game of all time. So I finished this multiple times, both physically and digitally. So that's staying. Link Between Worlds. Loved it back when it first came out. Really enjoyed how they really kind of spiced up the way that you got your different dungeon items. So that's going to stay because I finished it. We have here Fire Emblem Awakening, which I played after going through the Fire Emblem Fates games, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But loved it. Absolutely adored it, so this gets to stay. Fire Emblem's Shadow of Valentia, I can't remember what the English title is. Very insane that they would go from the very forgiving and sort of modernized gameplay of Fire Emblem Awakening, and then going to Fire Emblem Echoes, and then just being like, oh yeah, no, it's just going to be more or less like the original NES game, and it's going to be like really hard. So had a lot of fun with that though. Aha, here we go. This is the first game that is going to the bin. It is Pokemon Moon, and I've already beaten Sun, and I've beaten Ultra Moon. So do I really want 4 versions of Gen 7? Do I really need that? I don't know. Either way, it's getting cut. Who knows if it gets revisited because I ever want to complete a Pokedex, but that's going in the bin for now. Similarly, Pokemon X also going to the bin because I've got Y in here somewhere, and I think that's good enough for me. X and Y, very odd generation now that I think about it, because I guess Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, part of that generation, but feels kind of like it was kind of cut short and is kind of really sandwiched in between the giant generations of Black and White 2, and then you've got Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, and Ultra Moon. Very weird time for Pokemon. Pokemon Sun, this one gets to stay because I actually did finish it. This is one of my kind of re-entries back into Pokemon. I think this is like the first one actually it was Y when I was in Japan. Then we've got Detective Pikachu. This is one that I just kind of had to sacrifice because like it's a really intriguing concept. I love the movie, but I just want to move on to the next console, and the clock is ticking, so I'm just going to be getting rid of this. So let's see the next stack. Here we go. Oh yeah, why don't we do these both at the same time? So we've got here Fire Emblem Conquest and Fire Emblem Birthright, the 2 Fates games, Fire Emblem If. So these are actually the ones that I wanted to mention when I talked about how the 3DS games are sort of all ticking time bombs, because basically like the way that the flash memory works in these is not like your traditional flash, because they needed to do like crazy stuff with like electrons and shit to get the storage capacity to be as high as it was back in the 3DS era. They use this like crazy system where you're like literally like capturing electrons instead of like having the RAM be like etched into a mask ROM on the cartridge. So meaning that these are kind of vulnerable to like, I think, environmental degradation, manufacturing defects. And when I was going through my games to just check and make sure they all worked, coincidentally, both my Fire Emblem Birthright and Conquest games, neither of them worked. I had to run through this like refreshing program on my hacked 3DS, and each time like I couldn't save these games, so I had to end up buying new cartridges and then transplanting save data. Thank God the save data is like on a separate chip or sector of the chip that remained intact, but I did have to buy new cartridges for these games. So these are counted as being finished, and we'll put those aside. What is not being counted as finished is Alpha Sapphire, which I don't know, maybe one day I get around to it, but it's not a game that I think I would save in a fire at the current moment. One game that I would try to save is Omega Ruby, which I bought. This is the new copy that I bought back in the day, and had a lot of fun because I actually got out of Pokemon after Gen 2, so I had no experience with the Gen 3 games. So this was very enjoyable. And Luigi's Mansion 2, it's got to go. I enjoyed Luigi's Mansion 1, which is more or less a tech demo for the GameCube when it first came out. And I actually haven't finished Luigi's Mansion 3 on the Switch, but I don't know. Like, it's okay, but just I don't really feel compelled to play this on the 3DS. This is going to be another weird one, and sorry to friend of the channel Zip, but I've already got the PlayStation copy of Dragon Quest VII, and that's the one that actually kind of means something to me because it was one of the first games that I bought when I moved to Japan. However, the 3DS copy, I hear it's like, got some quality of life features, but considering that this is like a minimum 80-hour game, this is going to save me like a month of my life, and so it's got to go. Similarly, Rockman Classics Collection, I finished the first 2 Rockman games on this, and then I came around to the realization that I don't think I actually give that much of a crap about the Rockman games. To me, weirdly, my first experience with Mega Man was Mega Man Legends. So to me, that's actually what Mega Man is, like Mega Man Legends 1 and 2, and like Tron Bonne, not the NES games, because, they're just too hard. They're just too hard. And I know you can do like save states and stuff. That's how I beat the first 2 Mega Man games on this. Ultra Sun, gotta go. Much like Pokemon Moon, don't need an extra Gen 7 game. Star Fox 3D, like faithful remake of the N64 game. One of the best games of all time. One of my favorite shooters of all time. Finished this, like pretty much aced it. Just did all the different paths in like an evening. So had a lot of fun with that. Definitely would play it again sometime. Also beaten in within the last month, and a treasure of a game is Metroid Samus Returns. I really enjoyed the second Metroid game, the one that came out for the Game Boy. And what's really cool is they kind of take that concept of hunting down the Metroids, but really spice it up and make it like somehow both faithful to the original game, but also like a completely new experience. So really enjoyed this, and actually relatedly, because they're both Mercury Steam. What I forgot what the Mercury Steam. That's what it is. While Castlevania Lords of Shadow Mirror of Fate, it's not that great of a game. I did end up finishing it because I figure it's a Castlevania game. I have to finish it. I would not rate this very highly. However, it did eventually lead to Mercury Steam making Samus Returns and then Metroid Dread. So thank God for Mirror of Fate. Some other games we're going to be getting rid of. No, actually, no. Are we going to be keeping these all? Actually, yeah, we will. No, all these games we're keeping because it's Pokemon Y. Finished this in English because I got this like a year after I moved to Japan. Japanese still wasn't that great at the time. Not like it's amazing now. But what's really cool, especially about the 3DS games onward, is you can choose the language at the very beginning of the game, so you can get all these Japanese copies, even if they are region locked. You can get around that with hacking your 3DS, which is not terribly difficult. There's also Ocarina of Time, which I have very fond memories of because that was another game that I was playing when I was first traveling around Japan when I first moved there. And it's Ocarina of Time. How can you fault it? Mario Kart 7 also basically aced this in like a day. Had a lot of fun playing that. Loved basically every Mario Kart game. Mario Kart 8 is, of course, one of the best games of all time, one of the best racing games of all time. And then we've got Bravely Default for the sequel, which I also played in English since I was maybe like a year into living in Japan at that point. What was unique about this is that the original Bravely Default just had Japanese on it, but this one that was released in Japan had both Japanese and English on it. And I have a distinct memory of buying this while I was showing my friend Paul and his wife Annie around Tokyo and Kyoto. And so I have some really cool memories attached to this. So when you look at it, the games in the bin, getting rid of Dragon Quest VII, Luigi's Mansion 2, Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, Pokemon Ultra Sun. Notice a lot of these are RPGs. Rockman Classics Collection, Detective Pikachu, Pokemon X, Pokemon Sun. I had this insane idea where I was going to play through all of the Pokemon games, each version, each generation. And now I have this insane idea of maybe even trying to do a Pokedex for each generation. But who's got the time for that? I got to finish all these within 3 years. So at least for the time being, I am removing these from the collection. Maybe they come back one day and I achieve my goal of finishing all the Pokemon games and catching them all. But I don't know. So normally I would talk about what I have planned in terms of actually playing through these games. But because this is sort of the pilot episode, I'll just show you all the games that I finished. We've got, Metroid Samus Returns, Castlevania Mirror of Fate, Star Fox 64 3D, Omega Ruby, the 2 Fire Emblem Fats games, Pokemon Sun, Fire Emblem Echoes, Fire Emblem Awakening, Link Between Worlds, Kamigami no Triforce 2, Majora's Mask, best game of all time, and Pokemon Ultra Moon, which is basically just the same as Moon. So that is my 3DS collection. That's the bin. After consulting my notes very quickly, I have gone down to just needing to finish 323 games. That's 6,195 hours. So just by getting rid of the games within this bin, I have gone down 250 hours. That's about 4 months of my life. Now 3 months of my life that I'm going to be getting back. And thank goodness for that. Can it be done? Can I finish all of these games in my collection and hopefully buy a Switch 2 in 3 years? I guess we're going to see. Part of this process is going to be going through all of the games in my collection in what I like to call battle royales. We'll be doing that, I think, every few months when I have access to my collection. So to watch those, you can go to twitch.tv/jcontra. I stream every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes it'll be playing games. Sometimes it's going through these games and trying to get audience input onto the games that I should keep and the ones that I should get rid of. It can be a whole lot of different things. So that's once again twitch.tv/jcontra, 2 p.m. Eastern every Sunday. Hope to see you there. I've been your man out of Japan, Jay Contra. Thanks everyone for watching. See you next time, and mahalo.